G'day and welcome to the Grow a Small Business Podcast. I'm your host, Troy Trewin. Each week, we speak with an owner who has grown a business with 5 to 30 team members to something bigger. Diving into their numbers and unearthing the pain they've experienced, we explore what they did to overcome each barrier and what they would do differently from day one. Let's get into it. Welcome, everyone. Today I'm interviewing Jess Cutting from Hair Retreat based in Bendigo, Australia. Thanks for your time today, Jess.
My pleasure.
Let's start with how we know each other. We're actually second cousins. I think we are. That's how it works, isn't it? Second cousins. My cousin is your mum.
I've not done the family tree, but as far as I know, yeah, your mum's cousin and I'm mum's daughter, obviously.
Yes.
So, yes, second cousins.
And you're in Bendigo, and that's where I went to university for 5 years, doing my 2 degrees at once. So I love Bendigo. I haven't been back for years. I know I keep promising to come and visit you guys.
Likewise. Look, I'll probably get to Tassie before you get to Bendigo, though. So
yeah, good. You've got to let me know when you and Sam and the kids are coming down.
Absolutely.
Tell our audience a bit about your business, what it does and how it makes money.
Well, that's a differently winded question because it's not my business anymore. So I had a hairdressing salon, which I think explains itself, pretty self-explanatory, hairdresser. And I had that for 7 years, and just recently, I think, 3 months ago, sold the business and just decided to move into mum life for a little bit. So, and I think that was the draw card for me coming here, wasn't it? So I can tell you about my adventure.
Yeah. Well, we don't have that many people on that have exited their business. So I think it'll be great for the audience to hear the ups and downs and the lessons you learned, but also some of the wins as well.
So many of all of that.
How did you start out?
Let's go back to the beginning. I was an apprentice. It took me 5 salons to get myself qualified. And I tell you what, I'd said to my partner, as soon as I got qualified, I was going to quit. I'm done, but I was never a quitter, so I had to qualify. And then I got a job at Hair Retreat and worked for a beautiful, beautiful woman, Jenna. She was my boss for 5 years, I think. I can't remember. I'm a bit shady on those details. And she gave me trust straight away. Within 6 weeks, she left me in charge of her shop and went on a holiday, and it was a crazy time for someone who was going to leave hairdressing, and I had someone who had belief in me. So she made me believe in myself again. And 5 years after working for her, she said, I'm out and I want you to buy my salon. So I won't lie, it was not my ideal thing. I was probably too terrified. I didn't think I was capable. I'm very good at talking, which everyone will find out in this podcast because I won't shut up, which is great for building a clientele, but didn't think I had it in me to run a business. Like, it's quite a daunting thing. And let's do some math. I think I was 23, something like that.
Yes.
When I bought the business.
Yeah.
So quite young, I guess, in my head. And so, yeah, essentially I was a technician that bought a hair salon. Yep.
And just on Jenna, so it sounds like she was a great manager and she really turned your thinking around about the vocation, about staying in hairdressing.
It's interesting because she wasn't a great manager. Looking at it, so obviously after getting a bit of education myself about managing and running a business and everything, no, she was not a good manager. But the thing that was great about her was the way she treated me, because I had had some horrible treatment, and the way that she just gave me that belief and got me to believe in myself as well. So I guess that is a strength of a manager. She didn't run the business. We all just kind of free for all, did our own thing and stuff. She didn't even look at numbers, so much to a lot of people's disgust. But yeah, she was a human that just gave you love, and she just pushed you and you went with it. So yeah, if that answers it.
Yeah. So it was 2017 you bought the business, or 16?
2016.
16, great.
Yeah.
And do you have any key numbers you can share to illustrate the growth of the business over those 7 years?
We had some, I got to go through the business with COVID. So that was definitely interesting because obviously we were a service-based industry. So yeah, in my COVID times, we had 280, 270, 280. And then we managed, and let's be honest, hairdressing is it's definitely a revolving industry. I have so many things I would have done differently in respect of team. So obviously we've had team come and go through COVID and everything like that. And then we managed to jump our sales and everything to around 340, excluding GST on that. So
that's great. I mean, it was a great recovery. And I think part of that was you starting to track your numbers really helped.
Well, the difference too, because prior to that, so I obviously, well, not everyone else knows, I had two beautiful children. So for some of that, I actually worked for, but for that higher year, I didn't really work. I was not on the tools in the business. So that's what I actually managed to create, not being on the tools myself. However, the years prior to that and in through the COVID, I was actually in on the tools for a bit after my first child. So I think that's a big difference in those numbers and showing those underlying factors too, is I actually did better not being on the tools.
Yeah, and that adds a lot of value to the business if you can show that the owner doesn't need to work on the floor or do the billables. And so I think that was one of the first things I said to you when we started working together, about 3 years ago, was that we need to work towards getting you out of the billables and working on the two areas that I believe add the greatest value, which is management or people and marketing, which in the end you ended up loving the marketing side.
The marketing I did love. I should have put more time into it. Everyone could probably say that, I think, with marketing. And people management is probably a skill I wish I had have started working on a lot sooner in my journey, to be honest.
Me too. Yep. What about number of full-time equivalent team members you started with when you bought the business, and what did you get it up to around its peak?
Yes. As I said, it was a revolving door, and I was thinking about these numbers pretty much for the last week planning for this podcast. So when I took over the business, I was the only full-timer. And then I would have had about 3 part-timers. So 2.5 equivalent, essentially. Then we managed people come and go. I think my max before Christmas a couple of years ago, we had 4 full-time equivalents, and I wasn't in the business. I wasn't working. So it's a great industry for picking your own hours. So that was really good because you could have a full-time, like, people in the chair and mix it up with different people, which was exceptional. So,
yeah. And before we move on to the rest of the questions, we're omitting one of your businesses, which is actually how I started working with you, because my cousin Leanne, your mum's
auntie.
sister, I've not had enough coffee today to work that out. Leanne.
Just my auntie. That one's pretty simple. I can do that one.
Who's is a lawyer, and you were asking her for some advice around this other business.
So no one else in our family is smart, and I'm really sorry if any of them listen to this. They're not. They're definitely, no, that's pretty cruel. They're workers. They've never, and like my dad, he owns his own business, but he is his own business. He's a 60-hour plus a week, just him. So if I ever need smart advice, it's always Auntie Leanne and or Uncle Jonathan. And they just went, hey, talk to Troy. Guess what? He's got Grow a Small Business. He's the perfect person you should be asking advice for and sending your numbers to. So how about it? That was the start of that conversation when I thought it would be a great idea to own 2 hair salons at one time.
And what year was that? That was was that 2019?
Basically it was COVID. So no, because I had Miles in 2019. So 2020?
Yep, mid 2020. Yeah.
Yeah, yep.
And maybe just explain to the audience that business, how it was a bit different to the Hair Retreat.
Hair Retreat, I was the sole owner, and I had a beautiful team member come in to work for me, and she approached me and sort of said, look, can we go partnerships? I'd love to buy a hairdressing salon. I'd love to go partnership with you. So that is where a lot of my learning really begun. and I don't know, a lot of should I, shouldn't I's, but it was very much, I kind of figured if I didn't say yes, I was going to lose her anyway and kind of get the shake up in my own business. And at that point, sad to admit, I knew nothing. I was still very much the technician that owned a salon. And I was post my first child, and I still hadn't done a lot of educating. My educating in having a business started basically then, with coaching and everything. Before that, it was all just flying by the seat of the pants. And it was like, oh, no, panic. Are you going to lose a great worker, lose a lot of your clients? Because she was doing a lot of my clients. So yeah, why not? Let's see how we go at this two business thing. But yeah, partnership.
And what was the equity split? And you bought an existing business, didn't you? You didn't start a new one.
Yeah, so we bought an existing business, but it was basically just the premises and what was in it. It wasn't really a client list or anything like that. So it was easy to go. It was cheap to go into it too. It was a beautiful premises. If I could have had that for my salon, I would have, but I wasn't going to commit to moving over the other side of town or anything. So I think that was the other buffer, the space. It had so much potential, and I really loved that part of it. So it was already existing, and she was just going to move in there. Our plan was to build it up.
And the name of that one was Beautiful You. And it was, how far away from Hair Retreat was it?
It was probably barely 5K, but in Bendigo, it's a small city, so people don't often cross barriers too much. So if you're out Strathdale side and others are out Golden Square side, you generally kind of hang out there. And no, I know it doesn't sound far to proper city people, but creatures of habit here in Bendigo.
No, the population's around 100,000, isn't it?
I've got no idea.
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah.
It's
When was
nothing I feel like I need to know. It's busy.
when was the moment you felt like you had succeeded?
Do you know what? It sounds funny. I don't know if I ever felt like that. And I know that that's not a great answer, but I was in the build. So for what did you say we worked together for? 3 years. So for 4 years, I just flew by the seat of my pants, did what I could, did what I thought, copied my old boss, and then COVID hit and everyone was selling products online and doing videos and promoting stuff. And we didn't have a massive social media presence. We didn't have an online store. And that was the point that I actually started running my business. That was the light bulb moment that we had so much work to do and so much potential, and I had not lived any of that until that point. So for me, I exited to suit my family and probably my mental health mostly, but I don't feel like I succeeded because I was always trying or adding something else or trying to learn something else, and success for me wasn't defined by a number. I just loved seeing that growth. And so I guess I didn't have a point that was success for me.
Well, just looking at the numbers, I mean, you did grow the business. You take COVID out, those years, when you exited, the business was bigger and not having you in it. So to me, I think that was a success, particularly the bit about you not having to do the billables.
Yeah, look, it was, and like it can be corny, I guess, but I got two beautiful children. And my son and daughter, they didn't hit daycare until 2 and like 18 months. And I was a worker. I was going to go back to work after 6 weeks. And because I put a lot of that into the business, and the team I had when I had my son were amazing. So that really helped me have those couple of years just kind of in and out. And for me, being able to do that when I never thought in a million years having a business and actually having my kids at home was a thing is successful. Corny because I'm a mum and, but I never thought I'd have that opportunity.
So does that answer the next question? What does success look like to you?
Look, it does. And like, you know, I'm an emotional person. You poor thing, whenever we had our coaching calls, you're like, is she going to be crying today or is she not going to be crying today? And I'll try not to cry too much today, but I was never maternal, and I'm so proud of myself for juggling kids and managing a business and growing a business. Like, I've got to not be so hard on myself. Like, I managed to grow a business with 2 children. But the success for me is the happy times. So sometimes, as you well know, again, Jess would rock up crying every now and then. Sometimes it would take its toll. So success for me is that time that I got with my family, and this has set me up for that as well. So that, to me, I guess, is what the success looks like, and just that nice, that warm, fuzzy feeling here at home. So again, just real corny on that, looking at photos of my kids on the wall. Silly.
Now, I know you absolutely love the marketing corner of the business. What's the number one thing you'd recommend to marketing a fast-growing business?
Your presence is key, I think. Presence, you need to show up. You can't disappear. Obviously, getting people to communicate and respond on your social media is huge. The algorithm, it's so fascinating. If you wanted to look into it and understand the algorithm, it's fun. It's fascinating. Like, every 3 seconds is a view on Instagram. So the longer you keep someone reading or looking at photos, it's just, that's what excited me, is all that learning that I had no idea. And I think you need to show the faces behind the business. And I think that's where I really struggled to try and get my girls to really go, hey, I'm Jess, I've got an availability, because in our industry, it takes a lot of you showing up before anyone will trust who you are. So if you can be popping yourself up and they've seen you 6 or 7 times and, oh, I love that chatty girl that pops up, maybe I will go see her. So it's showing the faces that people will see when they come into your business. So I think appearing yourself and not just putting your item or stuff like that, I think people will relate to that more than just a picture.
Yeah, it's really tying into, it's becoming even more and more relevant every week, the authenticity in marketing. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, people love people. I know some people go, oh, I hate people, but guess what? They still love people. And if they connect with you just through those small things, or those small light bulb facts or whatever, that's where you catch people. It's not always your product.
Yeah, we're social creatures, and that's especially important for hairdressing, because a lot of that is the experience of sitting in the chair, talking, and having that social interaction.
Yeah, and I could talk the ear off something that doesn't have an ear, so I'm pretty set in that sense.
How did you fund the business?
So it was going okay when I bought the business. So I probably paid a little bit. I paid a bit more for what I sold it, and that's fine. I'm happy to admit that. I definitely got out of it what I needed to during the years. I put my own money towards it. I've got a fantastic partner who I've been with for quite a long time, and he has backed me in everything that I've done, 2 businesses and all. And so we fund a lot of it ourselves. The other thing that I did is I did have a bit of a family loan to help me out with a little bit of it. And that just every week just got direct debited until that was paid off as well. But it was probably a bit of a 50-50 split in paying for it.
Yep. If you were to start up today with plenty of funding, would you go into your industry?
See, I did read that question. I find that really interesting because I've never had a credit card. My business never had a credit card. I've taken loans for like house and whatever, and for a little bit for the business, but it was always don't spend what you don't have. So I've never really thought about funding, and it was always, I guess, with hairdressing, the money comes in, don't spend it if it hasn't come in, sort of thing. So I can't really answer that because, look.
So if you won the lottery and got a shitload of money overnight, you don't, like, say, $10, $20 million, you don't know what you do work-wise?
I would do exactly what I'm doing, but just pick my favorite people, the ones that I really love, and I would never be able to stuff up their hair, and I'd have 1, 2, 3, 4 clients a week just for my social side of things. And because I do love hair. I have a bit of a flair for it. So
Now, this one's going to be a pearler. Can you outline the most stressful point in your small business growth journey so our audience can learn from it?
Um, Now that's a tough one. Let me think about that. What was I crying about most of our meetings? Oh, team,
Yep.
team. They are my trigger. I, you and I both know, I didn't educate myself on how to get team. I didn't educate on how I should essentially not spoil, but really reward and celebrate your team. I got there as I went, maybe a bit too late, but the right people is the best time and the wrong people is the worst time. And I I can come across as a bitch, but when I'm at work, it's a different, like I have a different respect. You don't say the wrong thing, particularly when you're the boss. And when I have powerful people come in, there's no dealing with them. And I think that's the hardest part. So screening and learning, as I said, for me, I didn't do coaching. I didn't do courses until I was 4 years in. My vision is if I had have done this before I bought the business or even at the very start, I would have had a consistent team set up before I had my children and not have had a revolving door once I'd already had my first, and reward them and appreciate them and they give it back. I'd probably still have my business. If I set myself up better with the right team, I honestly think I'd still have my business.
Yeah, we talked about it a bit at the end, just before you exited, that I thought, in my opinion, after a bit over 3 years working together, the crux of your issue of not wanting to keep going with business was you got the recruitment wrong, or got it right but too late, and you just had enough on the people side. And you certainly heard Mark Horseman at Manager Tools say, which I love his phrase, recruitment's the most important thing a manager does. Because if you think about it, if you don't get A players on your bus, you're screwed.
Yeah, and you're not wrong. And if there's one thing that I can say to people is find someone, if you don't know, find someone who can teach you. Like, again, your course, that was a massive thing for me. But find someone who can teach you. I am too nice and I didn't say no to some people I should have. Sacking people is so much harder than saying no to people, in my opinion. And I also had someone who was part of my business who left. I was a bit desperate, so I let them come back, even though in my head I was like, is it better the devil you know than the one you don't? If the word devil is in that,
Yep.
don't let them back in. Like,
Actually, thinking of it now, because you did do the business transformation program, but you may actually be the catalyst for why we've got a 2-week short course just on recruitment called the Ultimate Recruitment Toolkit, because we know how important and how fucking hard it is to get recruitment right. So we actually created that last year after you finished up with your businesses. So we'll link through to that in the show notes if people want a resource.
you need to. And because I can tell you, the wrong person will fuck your shit up. And I know, I know. But again, I'm happy to admit my downfalls in having my business, and 100% the people, if it wasn't for me recruiting incorrectly, and there's nothing wrong with admitting what you do wrong or have done wrong, and 100% I will put my hand up and go, that was the worst mistake I made. Because yeah, again, if they weren't part of my business, I wouldn't have got to a point where I felt like I had to get rid of it, to be honest. And as an employer, I don't know what every other state's like, but Victoria, you're pretty well, again, I swear a lot and it's all coming in now,
Well,
but
you're part of the family, yeah.
you're fucked. You're absolutely fucked. I was on the phone to the hairdressing council, so you have access to lawyers. And one of my team members sat at a team meeting and openly bullied and said, I'm going to bully you, to another team member. And they said to me, there's nothing you can do. So I'm in tears on the phone going, so you can't sack people these days. So if you recruit incorrectly, you're fucking stuck.
Yep.
So if that doesn't get the message through to your listeners, they shouldn't have a business.
What area in business do you feel you've had to work on the most to add the greatest value?
For me, contradicting, obviously, team is a massive one. But before I started educating myself about running business, I did not look at numbers either. As I said, I very much copied my previous boss. And once I got a thirst for numbers, I understood them more. I knew where I needed to be looking. I knew what I needed to be working on, whether it be rebooking, whether it be retail, if it was just one team member. So I think that is a massive thing that I missed for a bit, because when I worked, if I was busy, the bills were paid. There was no stress. You didn't worry about it. When I wasn't on the tools, guess what? The team had to make that to bring it in to pay themselves, to pay all the other bills. So yeah, I think that gave me a big difference.
Yeah, it was great when we started tracking your data and obviously put the 10-year financial model together as well, which really helped you look into the future and see where the value levers were.
And now my future's here.
This one's going to be a curly one. What have you enjoyed the least about managing fast growth?
Is it again team or
team, people? Yeah.
Everything is growth. Everything is learning. I'm never anyone who regrets anything, because if I had my time again, it would have been the same. But if I have my time again now, knowing what I know and having done what I've done, it'd be so different, and my success might look differently too, because I might have numbers to strive for and stuff like that. But it's all curly, depending on the week. But I don't think, other than, yes, people management, which again, if I furthered my education, be a different story. We already know, like you and I know that, because where I started with talking to team members and conflict and stuff like that, to where we got to, again, with a bit of education, podcasts, all that kind of stuff. So if it's curly, that's where you need to be working on.
Yeah, as I said to you a couple of times, I actually think you are a great manager because you invest time in your own development in that level for a start, and the way that you conducted yourself with your team. But the problem was, if you've got B or C players or toxic arseholes on the team, it doesn't matter how great a manager you are. If you don't get rid of them and start again, your great management's not going to.
And it was tough, because I'm not a toxic person. And I had toxic of toxic. Like, if it was a bad day, you'd walk in, say good morning, and you wouldn't even get reciprocated. And I'm the boss.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of stuff. So, but for me, it excited me. Even going through the tough team and the shit times, because obviously I had a couple, I got excited when I was learning or achieving something different. So, and I think if you can still be excited by managing, you're doing it right. Like, you're doing it right and you're in the right area. If it doesn't excite you anymore, who knows? Maybe you need to do what I did and think about visiting a different area of life.
What do you love most about growing a small business?
Achieving the small wins. Like, as I said, the number growth. It was never in a million years. I was always like, you had to be in your business to make money. And I got to see that I didn't have to be in my business to make money. As much as I hate team, I love team. So again, if you get those A players, it's beautiful. Like, I had people that treated my business like it was their own, and that doesn't happen often. You generally expect 80% out of those people. So probably those kind of things.
What has been the biggest mindset shift for you in your small business growth journey?
Oh, that's a tough one, because I've had a lot of mindset shifts. I went from refusing to fail to selling my business. And for me, selling my business initially in the hairy times seemed like failing. But I got out of my business and I sold my business. And so I probably wasn't looking at that the correct way. For me, it's that I was always so negative on myself, and I didn't feel like I was winning. But then now that I'm probably in a better, like, I can reflect, I didn't celebrate the wins that I did have. And you might have a shit week, but somewhere in there was a win.
That's very much in our family, I think. We don't stop and celebrate the wins. We're on, right, great. What's the next mountain we need to climb? Why's everyone standing around? Come on, we've got fucking stuff to do.
Yeah, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. And I'm trying to get away from a couple of the traits that our family seem to have. But we don't, we're not an excitable family. We don't get thrills out of like it is. It's just business and head down and I don't know. Yeah. So celebrate in a shit week. Don't dwell on the shit. Again, that's probably something our family does. It's always a bit negative. What's the positive? Because if you don't have a positive, and it's constant negatives, you're going to end up crying to your business coach every flipping week and going, well, what's the value? So for me, it's if you want to be in it and you want to stick to it, you need to, I don't know, diary you're positive every single week, or because it's there, you just don't want to see it.
The number one habit you think a small business owner needs to develop and maintain?
I know how fond you were of all my habits and strategies that I had or they're lack of. Create a strategy and stick to it. I had my peaks of sticking to my strategy. I got better at a lot of things. There's some things I didn't get better at. So I probably am not someone who can comment because I'm a bit like a dog. I'll chase a fly and then I'll chase a butterfly and then I'll go lay on the grass. And so I'm very sporadic. But keep your notes, get a business coach, because I think for me, having to answer the questions every week, did you get this done, made me a lot more accountable. So it's figuring out your accountability, keep your list of everything and figure out what keeps you accountable. In my sense, it was you asking me that I got there. Because if not, if I didn't have anyone to answer to, I would just be like, oh, well, no one knows I was going to do that marketing. No one knows I was going to make that flyer. Then when you got someone going, well, how come it's not done? Then I'll go, what excuse can I make up today? Then I stopped making excuses and actually started doing the work.
I think one habit you did build over time, which I believe adds a lot of value, is that, investing in your professional development. You listen to a shit ton of books and podcasts and
I did.
courses and reading. Yeah.
And now I really enjoy them. Like I really, a big thing you and I talked about, and again, it was probably for my mental sanity, is my exercising. And I loved, before I had my son, I was at the gym 5 days before he was born. So it was something I really needed to put back in. I need to put back into myself. And so you were like, get up, set your alarm, 5 a.m. and podcast it, audio book it. And I just had a treadie because I was home with the kids and my hubby was already at work. So stuff like that. And it was building that consistency because, again, learning and the manager's tools, which is one that you had me listen to, talking with team and feedback and stuff like that. It's stuff that I never in a million years would have looked at if I didn't have that push.
Yep, absolutely. One or more of these growth pillars standing in the way of you living the lifestyle you've signed up for? People, strategy, marketing, funding, or systems. We have a free ebook filled with actions and templates on each of these growth pillars. Download for free from our website, growasmallbusiness.com. Now, this one could go for a while. Can you talk to how you've added people to the team, some wins, mistakes, and advice for those listening?
Mistakes, not trusting my gut. That's a huge, because it took me almost the 7 years of having the business to realize, do you know what? You make your own hours. You don't have to have a full-time team member in here. If you want to shut on Fridays, you're the boss. Shut on Fridays. So my headspace was very much in hiring to fill the spot. I need someone in there. It's the warm body syndrome. Someone goes, one person comes for an interview, guess what? They're hired because you need them. You don't need anyone. And I can tell you, if you are desperate for someone and you feel the need for someone, then you probably are going to hire wrong, because you're just hoping. And hope is not a strategy, a wise man once told me. You're hoping. So not trusting my gut. And as I said, I had someone who left And they left on great terms. So I stupidly said, oh, well, if you ever need to come back, let me know. And then when I said it, I regretted it straight away. And then she let me know she wanted to come back. And I checked with the team. And I don't know, I think I was hoping one of them would tell me, don't do it. Because in my head, I was like, don't do it. So you need to listen to your inner voice. That's one of the biggest mistakes I made, because I didn't think the business would succeed without having warm body syndrome. It had to be full. So that's the biggest mistake. What are my wins? Oh, I had certain people. It was really funny. I had one amazing team member that every time I was having a crappy time with a team member, she'd drop into my inbox and be like, hey, Jess, I'm just checking again. Are you sure you don't have an availability? And this happened, I kid you not, 3 or 4 times when I'm having a meeting with someone and I'm just like, oh, they're doing my head in. So fate got me the best employee I think I had the whole time. She was incredible. And again, it was taking a chance on just this random that just kept pushing, because they saw my salon. They loved what they saw, and I couldn't understand what they could see, but they saw something I didn't see myself. And then I also had another beautiful girl that I took a chance on, who she came to the salon a couple of times, and she ended up putting herself through the full-time course and was nearly there. And she was told she was too short and too fat to ever be a hairdresser by some of the local salons in town.
Oh, wow. It's terrible.
And that broke my heart. Like, and again, but for me, like, she was just such a bashful, like, she was a beautiful soul. Like, again, it's that gut thing. Like, you could just see straight up. And so I took her out of the full-time course and I gave her a job, and she was, again, probably up there on par with the best employee I had. So it's, again, the pluses and the minuses are both the gut. Checking your references is massive. I actually had one that I rang, and I had made a great friend out of the reference, but she said, do not hire her. I don't know why I'm on her resume. I've told her not to. I will not recommend her. And so this conversation went, and I was like, if I didn't check that, I was again desperate. I was again going to warm body syndrome this person who sold herself.
And I said to you, make sure you check references.
Yeah. Yep. And I'm usually a bit shy. No, fuck that. I'm not. But I don't know, phone calls to random people are awkward. So I'd rather avoid them. But this time I didn't. And thank goodness I didn't. So check your references. And anyone who comes across that they're the best, fuck them too. I'm not a big fan, because it's your business and you need a personality that's going to come in and respect your business and be able to move with it, or appreciate change. And so if you've got someone who's the cockiest person, you can't change that, because they already can't get better. So it's a broad answer to a few of those questions.
No, that's good advice, Jess. What are some of the things you recommend to building a sustainable and kick-ass culture to help with the growth?
Don't hire dickheads. Look, I was always very appreciative. I got to the point I was having some one-on-one meetings. For some team, the ones that are the moaners and the groaners, they were quite heavy and quite hard. The ones that were my A players, we had growth, we had great chats. What are we working on? We'd sit and have a coffee, and it was great. Obviously, that was when I had the kids and I wasn't working in the business. But even when I did get back on tools for a brief time, still made sure that was penciled out, because
you're talking about the weekly one-on-ones?
Yeah, the one-on-ones. Yep. And just having that time where, again, if your team member's having a shit time, but they're too busy, they can't tell you, then they're going to spiral. But if they can tell you, or just go, I'm having a bad week, Jess, you might go, hey, you've got 2 hours. Go home for that 2 hours. Like, communication is massive. And I'm a big spoiler. So I loved just randomly getting them brunches and coffees. I loved spoiling them at Christmas. I like all of those things. It's not necessarily about money, but it's about appreciation. And I think the best thing you can do, if you've worked for an asshole, you don't want to be the asshole. So I would always go, if the roles were reversed, how would I want to be treated, and how would I feel appreciated? And yeah, saying thank you. I'd say thank you to my team every day when I left. Thank you. And I'd compliment their work. It's just being seen, being heard. That is what can get you a good culture, as long as you don't put the assholes in there that make the mindset of those beautiful A players negative.
Yeah. Tell our audience how you've handled balance.
Did I?
Well, you were pretty big on maintaining your fitness. I know there were a couple up and down times, but I think, how many hours a week roughly were you working?
Give or take. Like, are you talking on tools, or are you talking like
well, on the business? I can tell you the answer if you want,
because it's about 22, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's about 22 or 24 hours weeks. We tracked it there for a while. So that's pretty phenomenal.
When I kept my hours.
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty good. 3 days a week.
Yeah.
Not having to do billables, just focusing on the marketing and the management.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I'm busy. I'm a busy person. I'm not good at doing nothing. You asked me before we started this podcast how retired life is, and I'm like, I'm now sitting at play centers doing nothing when normally I would take work, and I'm finding that really hard. So I don't know. I probably never stopped enough to know if I had balance or not, to be honest. I just would stop here and you'd go to a park, or you'd go do a pickup or a drop off, or you'd work on the next thing. I've always got some damn hobby happening. So, but yeah, so I don't know if I ever had it.
Well, I can answer the next question. You did invest a lot in your professional development. You got any other comments around professional development?
Start sooner than I did. So one of the questions you're going to ask me, which you can now skip, is books. You're going to ask me what book. And most of the books I've read or listened to have come from you, essentially, your recommendation. And you know what I'm going to say. Do you want to guess it before I say it?
The E-Myth?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, it took COVID for me to realize you're just in there cutting hair. You know absolutely fuck all about this. So it's great that I obviously had the personality, technique, like all of that to get to where I did in the first 4 years, but actually running the business, I did not start until we started this. And as I said earlier, like that's a mistake. And mistakes are just growth and they're learning. And I get that. So it's not good to have mistakes. But for me, if that had have happened, if I invested in owning my business and working at being the manager, as I said, when I had my kids, I would have been set up. I had 4 years before my son, basically, to have set up a business to function on its own without me. And I didn't. So that's, to me.
Yeah, the E-Myth's the #1 book I recommend people read if they're thinking of starting, but especially growing a business. One of the key messages there's the 3 roles he talks about: the entrepreneur, the manager, and the technician, which you've referenced a couple of times. So really, really important.
Yeah, and 100%. I was like, oh, I don't want to own a business. And then I did own a business because do you know what? Anyone who has money can buy a hairdressing salon. They're not regulated. You don't have to be a hairdresser. I don't know, again, other states I think are trying to get it regulated, but you could just throw a whole heap of hairdressers in there and shit blows up. So, yeah, you have to know how to run it, not just cut hair.
Now, you've obviously had mentors and coaches, me being one of them. Any comments for the audience on mentors or coaches?
Well, I mean, I essentially answered that the last one too. Do it.
Mm.
I married a tight ass. So God love him.
Sam's going to listen to this.
That's fine. I've said worse. I married a tight ass, and he's taught me all about money and not spending it unnecessarily. And I honestly thought coaching was a waste of money. It's to some people it's expensive, but again, when I look at before I had the mentoring and the coaching and everything like that, we were having some 3-4 grand weeks. We came out the other end of this again with me not working with 9 grand weeks.
Yeah, phenomenal. Yep.
So, and I didn't count numbers before I had coaching. I didn't do spreadsheets. I can now do my own Excel. I'm pretty proud of that. I couldn't do that before you. So you need to do it because you don't know everything, and it isn't easy. Like, you might have luck for the first few years, but if you want to build, you want to have team, all of that stuff, you need strategy, you need accountability, you need someone to look at it in a different light to you. You need someone to bawl your eyes out to and have your ups and downs and all of that kind of stuff. And sometimes, like in my world, I have the most beautiful husband, but he didn't get any of that either. So coaching's not just about you making more money. It's so many more things when it comes to you running a business.
Yep. Yeah, good advice, Jess.
Like those compliments?
Yeah. I'll answer the next one. So you didn't have a board of directors or advisors. Now, you did exit 2 businesses. Any quick advice for the audience on exiting?
It's not failing. I essentially probably should have looked at exiting 12 months before I did. It was my thing. I didn't want to fail. I didn't want to leave and everyone think I was a failure. And now reflecting on that, and it's unfortunate, like lots of businesses closed. Lots of businesses closed during COVID. I didn't close because my business was having a tough time. Again, we were growing in numbers. That's why, as I said, I can't say that I felt success because there was still so much that I could do and I was really excited to do. Again, just mentally, it was that juggle, and it was the question of, it was asked to me because, as you know, I invested in 2 lots of coaching, one industry related and obviously yourself. And it was my other coach who sort of said to me, Jess, you've got the 2 kids, you do stuff for your sister, you've got your husband, you run the house, you have your niece and nephew every week. And she goes, and then you've got these girls. That's not the word she used, but as you can put the expletive in there. And she goes, you give 100% to everything. And she made me reflect, and it made me go, I'm giving 100% to everything. And my children appreciate it, and my husband appreciates it. My niece and nephew appreciate it. Like my clients, sure, they appreciate it, but I can still do hair if I want to. My team didn't appreciate it. And I was spreading myself out, and I didn't begrudge spreading myself out. I loved it. But I also knew too, I was putting time into people. I was putting my 100% into people that didn't value it like it was getting valued at home. And it just made me realize, what was I getting from it? Numbers and that are great. You know, I was really shit. I never really paid myself. I let it sit there and I put it all back into my girls or into the business, and end of quarter, I'd have a play them. But so I wasn't really taking anything. I was the excitement of building and my one-on-ones. That's what I was getting. And when they became a bit too much and just become a bit bitchy, and I just went, where's the value? So I think if you are considering exiting, as I said, 12 months, I should have done it 12 months sooner, but I thought I was failing. And I wasn't. I managed to sell my business for money. So that's a win as well. And I was probably failing my children. I felt like I was then failing a different area. And that was the area that needed me more. So if you're considering exiting, don't look at it like a bad thing, because I'm not done yet, and I'm lucky. I've still got some time up my sleeve. I could change careers, or you know what, I could do it again with the lessons that I've learned when the kids are a little older. But yeah, I think that was my hardest thing, is I was in tears, and again, God, I was emotional. I haven't cried once yet. yeah, I just felt like everyone would look at me negatively. But do you know what? So many people approach me and you've done so well and good for you. And so you're the negative voice in your head.
Yeah, I think
You're
that's good
the only one
advice. Yeah.
it matters for.
A lot of people tie exiting a business, whether they shut it down or sell it, as a failure. But yeah, that's really good advice. Right, Jess, we're on our final five questions. What do you think's the hardest thing in growing a small business?
Team. Uh yeah, team and I guess making I don't know. It is honestly because I know we're coming back to this team thing all the time, but I wouldn't I could tell you, you know, a couple of names. If they didn't enter my life, I'd still be doing it because I was so excited by it. And growth is so fun. And don't be afraid to change things. I didn't change enough early enough. But yeah, like again, sorry, I'm starting to sound like Troy, but team, you need A players because it's a make or break.
Favorite business book we know is The E-Myth, as it is mine. Any great
Mhm.
podcasts or online learning tools you use for your own professional development?
Yeah, you had me do the managers tools, and that was great because I reckon every one of our meetings, look it up. It's probably in a manager's tools podcast. If you've got a question about your business or how to do something in your business, they have probably answered it. I will say, if this helps anyone listening, when I said to you, oh, I tried looking for it, I couldn't find it, you'd go whiz, 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 bang. Don't look for it in the app. Look for it online because looking in the app, the keywords didn't help. I couldn't find it. And then you would get on just a web browser and go, yeah, there's one there. It's called this. Then I could look it up in the app because obviously in the app you can fasten it up, which was something that you taught me. Listen to it on a faster speed. Obviously, don't listen to this podcast faster because I already talk fast. Um, but yeah, so definitely I loved it in the app, but look up the name of the whatever your issue is first in the browser. So much quicker.
They've got great content. Unfortunately, the website and the app are a bit hard to navigate and they don't look that professional, that good. I think they're overhauling it because Mark and Mike's exited the business mostly recently. So it'll be a good one to see. But yeah, that's a great podcast to develop yourself and your other managers as good managers or great managers.
Well, and the other thing I loved too was the disc.
Yep.
That I think is a lot. It just teaches you where someone's at, and the best way to sort of navigate their personality a little bit as well, and where they're like how you can help them with a win or what might be a win to them or appreciation to them and stuff like that too.
Yeah, for the audience, it's a behavioral model disc. So dominance, which I am. So I'm extrovert, task orientated. You're a high I from memory. People orientated extrovert. S is a steady person or steadiness, who are introvert people orientated, and a C is introverted task orientated, so like accountants, engineers, etc. High Is are typically sales people, and so high Ds, yeah, one of our strap lines is I don't mind, you don't matter. I think one of yours is the high I is anyway. Enough about me. What do you think about me?
Yeah, look, I'm definitely not that shallow like I am, but I'm not. I was an I and a D. Like it breaks you into the categories. But yeah,
It just allows you to tailor your communication style. So if I'm talking with a high I will change the way I talk, or how I say, what I say, etc., and in my body language, to so I'm closer to their comfortable language, communication style. Yeah. It's one of the great uses, and also particularly managing people.
yeah, that was another thing that I got very excited about. And I listened to that in the podcasts as well, just to sort of learn how to work with my girls a bit more with the team that I had.
One tool you'd recommend to help grow a small business?
Well, that's one. I don't know.
That's all right. We can just say that one.
Yeah, say that one. I like that. Well, it definitely was enlightening because people aren't you. You have to understand that you can't communicate the way that you think it needs to happen. You need to get the best out of someone, you need to put yourself in their shoes. And they're not in your shoes. So that's probably a really good tool.
Finally, my favorite question. What would you tell yourself on day one of starting out 7.5 years ago?
get a fucking business coach.
I knew you were going to say that.
No, well, it's one of my biggest lessons. And again, I know it's repetitive and I understand all that, but it's the difference for me having the business still and not. And I'm not upset that I don't have it. I'm having the time of my life. I'm calling, someone said to me today, so what are you doing now? I'm like, nothing. I'm doing nothing. I'm dropping my kids at kinder. I'm loving them and spoiling, and I'm getting that time. So I wouldn't change it. But as I said, if I educated myself away from being a technician and managing my business and setting myself up, I had 4 fucking years to have people that had my back in there before I had my kids. So, like, that would be the biggest change I'd make. I'd also wouldn't buy a business that I worked in. I worked in the salon, so therefore, because I had that clientele, I didn't feel like I could bump the prices up where they should have been.
Yep.
And some people that you take on with the business, if you do take any employees on, they could be Ds. And you maybe need to analyze that and fuck them off real quick, or they might really harm your 7 years in business or longer.
Yep. All great advice. And thanks so much for coming on today, Jess. It's taken me, 2 years to get you on here.
I'm not someone, I can't pump my own tires up. I never thought I was enough. I was a little hairdresser that had a little hairdressing salon. Like, yes, I've at some point had 6, 17 members, obviously not all full-timers, but I just never felt like I was at the caliber of some of the guests that you have on here. So I was always a bit shy and wary to think that I was up there with the big guys.
Yeah, no, I think you've done a great job over the years. Congratulations. I mean, your continual learning particularly and your drive. I know you've had some tough times, but overall you were very positive, and I think you did a great job over those years.
Thanks. It was fun. Not done yet, though. I've still got your number, so you might be screwed in a few years.
Great. That's it. Thanks for listening. Please leave a review in iTunes or whatever platform you listen to us on. It means more small business owners will find our cast and help people with their business growth journey.